Chapter 61, Zhou Qiu can't stand it anymore. The next day, Zhang Yi heard gunshots coming from the hallway. Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots sounded, like 2 large firecrackers being set off. This was undoubtedly Chen Zhenghao's doing. It was clear that Zhang Yi's words from yesterday had had an effect. In a situation of utter despair, people's fear of death slowly begins to fade. Zhang Yi's promise of all-you-can-eat noodles for a week was an irresistible temptation to them. Zhang Yi turned on the surveillance camera and saw the moment the conflict broke out. The 2 men were holding wrenches and kitchen knives in their hands and fell to the ground, their blood staining the corridor. However, Chen Zhenghao was in no better shape. He leaned against the wall, holding a gun in his hand, looking terrified. They would intercept people here who came to get water, and naturally others could also take advantage of this opportunity to fight back against them. Chen Zhenghao told his men to drag the 2 bodies away, and he quickly followed behind them back to the house where they were staying. He held a pistol firmly in his hand, which was now his last resort. After dragging the 2 bodies home, Chen Zhenghao gave his men a wink, and they immediately dragged the bodies into the kitchen. Soon after, there was a loud clattering sound inside. Chen Zhenghao's gaze was dark and sinister. Sitting on the cold sofa did not give him much warmth. After returning yesterday, he saw the news in the group and knew that Zhang Yi had offered a reward for him. This made him furious. He felt that he was the hunter, and Zhang Yi was just the prey. Why should the prey fight back against the hunter? However, he underestimated the madness of a person in desperate circumstances. Early this morning, 2 desperate young men came to take his life. This made Chen Zhenghao feel a sense of crisis, but at the same time, he became even more crazed. Die! I'll kill you all. If you want me to die, you should die first. Chen Zhenghao roared. After relaxing, he suddenly felt some pain in his back. So he called one of his henchmen to help him see what was going on. After taking a look, the younger man suddenly shouted, "Brother Hao, you've been stabbed in the back." On Chen Zhenghao's down jacket, there was a 30-centimeter long cut made by a kitchen knife. The blood was not very obvious on the black down jacket, and could only be seen upon closer inspection. Just now, it was too cold outside, and Chen Zhenghao's adrenaline was pumping due to his excitement, so he didn't feel any pain. Now that he heard what his younger brother said, he suddenly let out a cry of pain. Those 2 sons of bitches. Chop them up into little pieces. Tiny beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He quickly picked up his phone and called Zhou Qiu. "Dr. Zhou, I've been injured. Come over here and help me get bandaged up." Soon after, Zhou Qiu arrived at Chen Zhenghao's house with a first aid kit. Looking at this ruthless villain who had killed so many people, Zhou Qiu's eyes were full of disgust. But in order to survive, she had to treat his wounds. In fact, before, the reason why Chen Zhenghao's arrow wound did not act up was also because she helped Chen Zhenghao heal the wound. Although she was reluctant, she had no choice in the face of the villain's gun. "I won't help you for free," Zhou Qiu said coldly. Chen Zhenghao laughed, pointing his finger at the kitchen and saying, "I'll give you a piece of the meat later." Zhou Qiu sniffed hard, and only then did she catch the pungent smell of blood. Her face changed, and having worked in a hospital for many years, she of course knew what it was. With great difficulty, she suppressed the urge to vomit, and said coldly, "No thanks." Chen Zhenghao laughed, "What's the point of being so high and mighty when times are so hard? Sooner or later, you'll eat it. If you don't, you'll die." "I'd rather die." Zhou Qiu frowned. "I can't let you do that. In this world, having a doctor by your side is too important," Chen Zhenghao exclaimed. If Zhou Qiu hadn't helped him treat his leg wound, he would have lost more than just his leg, he would have lost his life. "Don't worry, if I have to eat you someday, I'll save you for last." Chen Zhenghao stared at Zhou Qiu, and a fiery look flashed in his eyes. He had long admired this beautiful woman. If she weren't still useful to him, he would have already made a move. Zhou Qiu frowned and stopped talking, but helped him treat his wound. In no time at all, the wound was simply bandaged up. Zhou Qiu picked up the medical kit and planned to leave. who knew that Chen Zhenghao gave his subordinate a wink, and that little underling suddenly blocked the doors. Zhou Keir's heart sank. "What do you want?" Chen Zhenghao said, "Nothing. You can't leave until my wound is healed." Chen Zhenghao was also scared at this moment. He didn't know how many people wanted his life, and he was short of medicine. With a doctor by his side, he felt at ease. Regardless of Zhou Keir's resistance, he insisted on keeping her there. After a while, his men brought a plate of cooked meat. Zhou Keir nearly vomited when she saw human fingers on top. Fortunately, she worked in a hospital and was in contact with dead people all the time, so she didn't die of fright. Chen Zhenghao told her to eat some too, but of course she refused. Chen Zhenghao sneered and ignored her. He felt that Zhou Keir was just being righteous, and sooner or later, when she couldn't stand the hunger anymore, she would naturally eat it. This isn't a solution. These cattle and horses are now daring to rebel, which is very bad for us. We will only be safe in the future if we get rid of that guy Zhang Yi and take over his house. Their house is like a fortress, and there are a lot of supplies inside, enough for us to live for at least a few months. Maybe by then, the snowstorm will have passed. Therefore, for the time being, we still have to consider how to deal with Zhang Yi. Chen Zhenghao said to his subordinates. The younger brothers looked at each other in surprise. "Brother Hao, we've attacked Zhang Yi's house many times, but we've failed every time. Their house is like a tortoiseshell, we can't get in." Chen Zhenghao said, "I don't believe Zhang Yi's house is impenetrable, and I don't believe that he doesn't go out. Let's do this, let's move in next door and keep watching shifts. As soon as we get the chance, we'll just kill him. And living on the upper floors is safer." The group was at a loss at this point, and they nodded in agreement to whatever Chen Zhenghao said. Zhou Keir heard their entire conversation. Under the pretext of going to the bathroom, she went to the bathroom to send a message to Zhang Yi, telling him about this. After learning about it, Zhang Yi laughed indifferently. Trying to get himself out is absolutely impossible. I understand. You stay there and keep an eye on the situation. Zhou Keir is a doctor, so Chen Zhenghao won't kill her, so for the time being, she is safe. Zhang Yi is in no hurry to intervene. He set a reward, and someone will naturally come to kill Chen Zhenghao. Chen Zhenghao and the others packed up some supplies, and then took Zhou Keir to the 24th floor. The young couple living next to Zhang Yi knew that Chen Zhenghao was here and were also terrified. Chapter 62, Live streaming a big meal to the neighbors. "Open the door, open the door. I'm Chen Zhenghao, and I'm trading houses with you. Open the door quickly, or I'll shoot." In the room, the young couple huddled together in fear. "What should we do? They're here to rob our house. I'm afraid we won't be able to save even the last of our food." The wife looked at her young husband with despair in her eyes. The husband is a clerk with glasses. Hugging his wife, he reassures her, "Don't be afraid, it'll be fine. If they want the house, we'll just give it to them." "Right, quickly hide the rest of the food on your person." The two hid the little food they had left in their clothes and then, trembling, opened the door. Seeing the ferocious Chen Zhenghao and the others outside, the man swallowed and bowed, saying, "Brother Hao, this house will be yours from now on. We'll leave immediately." With that, he was about to lead his wife away. Before they had taken 2 steps, one of Chen Zhenghao's henchmen let out a sneer and raised the steel pipe in his hand. Bang! After a muffled sound, the man fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he fainted. He couldn't understand it. He had clearly obeyed and given up the house. But why did the other party still attack? The woman looked at her husband in horror as he fell to the ground, blood flowing onto the ground and quickly turning black. Ah! She covered her mouth and let out a scream. Another rod fell on her head. 2 little underlings came over and without saying a word, just hit them on the head with metal pipes one after the other. Zhou Keir held her mouth shut tightly, completely dumbfounded. This was the first time she had seen someone killed, and no matter how strong her mental constitution was, she couldn't remain calm. Chen Zhenghao just looked at her and sneered, "It's so cold, we have to stock up on food, so that we don't starve. After killing so many people, he had completely lost his respect for life. And there was one thing that Chen Zhenghao was unwilling to admit. That was after being offered a reward by Zhang Yi and being attacked, he too had a sense of fear within him. So he had to suppress the owners of the various floors in a more bloody way to make them submit. Zhou Qi gritted her teeth against the nausea and didn't say anything. Chen Zhenghao walked into the room with a carefree attitude and told his subordinates to dispose of the two people. Over the next few days, Zhang Yi could always hear a clanging sound. The sound came from the next room, and he knew that Chen Zhenghao and the others were looking for a way into his room. Moreover, those few men were taking turns monitoring Zhang Yi's front doors and back windows. Chen Zhenghao thought that Zhang Yi would at least come out to take out the trash or get the melted snow. If they could just catch Zhang Yi off guard, they could kill him and take everything that belonged to him. But what Chen Zhenghao didn't realize was that Zhang Yi had a huge dimensional space in his possession, so water was not an issue at all. However, Zhang Yi did find it inconvenient being unable to throw his trash out the window. Chen Zhenghao had a gun in his hand, so he wasn't going to take that risk. However, for an otaku, having a lot of trash in his home was no big deal. When he gets bored, he plays video games or watches movies and TV series that he downloaded in advance. Every day, the owner's group remains full of people begging him for mercy. What comes with it is also the furious cursing that follows. Zhang Yi, you're a heartless bastard. You could have let everyone live a little longer, why are you so selfish? You're destined to be lonely forever. Don't you have a heart? If you don't help us, you'll live the rest of your life with guilt and remorse. Facing the angry shouts of his neighbors, Zhang Yi's approach was also very simple. He simply went live in the group and recorded himself eating, recording his life and sending it to them. Hello everyone, today I'll make you a dish of braised pork. After saying that, a piece of pork belly weighing at least 10 pounds was thrown onto the cutting board. The neighbors in the group went red-eyed. What's the point of using so much pork belly to make braised pork? If you can't finish it, don't waste it, give it to me. Zhang Yi, you're not human, you're an animal. You don't deserve to eat that pork belly. Zhang Yi, I haven't had any oily or fishy food for a week, please let me have a piece of pork skin. I'll even drink the oil, it's not like you want it anyway, right? Please give it to me, I'm begging you. A person who is extremely hungry has no resistance at all to this kind of high-fat food. Zhang Yi worked away with clacking sounds, and it was as if the neighbors could smell the aroma of the braised pork through the screen. However, after cooking for a while, Zhang Yi frowned. He picked up a piece of pork belly and took a bite, then spat it into the trash can. Too much soy sauce. Damn, this pot of meat is ruined. Zhang Yi usually cooks, but he doesn't cook big meals very often. As a result, the taste of this pot of meat is substandard. How can I eat this? Ugh, what a waste. Zhang Yi shook his head as he poured the entire pot of pork into the trash can. The group instantly exploded, and the neighbors went crazy. Stop, don't throw it away. My mouth is the trash can is here. What a sin. Why did you throw it away? Why? Aha. Hurry up and throw away your trash, I'll go pick it up right away. Young master, I'm sorry I'm late. Do you still need a dog? The kind that disposes of your trash for you. Some people were so angry at Zhang Yi's actions that they almost fainted on the spot. Their hearts were bleeding. It was freezing cold, the gas had been cut off, and there was no way to cook. Even a hot meal was a luxury. Not to mention braised pork, which they wouldn't dream of eating. And Zhang Yi, without a second thought, had thrown it all away. Damn him. I might as well eat something ready-made. Zhang Yi turned the camera, and a dozen dishes appeared on the clean table. The warm yellow overhead light illuminating the table makes the food look even more appetizing. Zhang Yi pointed to each dish and enthusiastically introduced it. Look, everyone, my dinner tonight is braised prawns, sautéed sea cucumber with spring onions, steamed tofu, sweet and sour yellow carp, stir-fried pig's intestines, pan-fried fish fillets, sweet and sour pork, mullet rose soup, and deep-fried yam. Old friends, the food is here, let's eat. Zhang Yi set up his phone like a foodie vlogger and started to dig in with his chopsticks. The neighbors in the group were going crazy with messages. Zhang Yi, please share a bite with me. I'll bow to you. Zhang Yi, please give my child a bite of the fish, even the tail is fine. Zhang Yi, you are my father, I am your son, just let me have a sip of the soup. The sounds of various pleas were endless, and some people were frantically calling Zhang Yi's phone. Zhang Yi didn't even care about them, and just enjoyed his meal. Seeing the frustrated looks of these neighbors made Zhang Yi feel even better about the meal. Chapter 63, Infection. Zhang Yi's way of showing off his prosperity made the owners of the entire apartment building feel like their hearts were bleeding. The spoiled food that was now dumped in Zhang Yi's house was a delicious meal for them. But even so, Zhang Yi wouldn't give it to them. Sun Jichao and the others were at home. Since their last failed attempt to storm Zhang Yi's house, their hopes of obtaining antibiotics had also vanished. After just 2 days, the after effects began to show. The 3 injured men felt an intense itch in their wounds. The blood around the bandages had started to look strange, an unnatural yellow. Sun Jichao couldn't help but pull the bandages off to take a look. As a result, he saw that the wounds had already begun to become infected. A pungent, fishy smell hit him in the face, like that of a rotting, smelly animal carcass. No, 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 no. This can't be happening, I don't want to die yet. Sun Jichao cried out in terror, sniveling and snorting. Zhou Peng and Gu Jiaoliang were even more distraught when they saw this. They removed the bandages from their own wounds and prayed that they would not become infected. Unfortunately, ideals are beautiful, but reality is cruel. If it had just been a scratch, there might have been a chance for a self-healing wound. However, the injuries they sustained were all penetrating wounds, with rusty crossbow bolts embedded deep in their flesh. The injuries, combined with bacterial infections and the lack of adequate nutrition and medicine, made it inevitable that the wounds would worsen. The few people let out screams of pain, as if they were going mad. In the room, Fan Yuqing was shivering. She took out her phone and sent a message to Zhang Yi. Brother Zhang Yi, they've all gone crazy. Yuqing is so scared. Please come and save my life. Okay? I will be good after I get there, I will do whatever you tell me to do. After a while, Zhang Yi's reply came. Yuqing, it hurts me to see you like this, but I can't go out, Chen Zhenghao is next door. Why don't you come over here? But be careful on the way, don't let them bump into you. Yesterday, my neighbors next door were all killed by them. You are delicate and tender, they might target you. Zhang Yi on the other side was full of mockery. Facing Fan Yuqing, the White Lotus, there was only one thought in his heart, and that was to torture her by every means possible and let her die in pain and despair. Sure enough, upon hearing that Chen Zhenghao was next door to Zhang Yi, Fan Yuqing was full of anxiety. Chen Zhenghao has killed too many people, so she doesn't have the guts to take any chances. Brother Zhang Yi, Yuqing is scared. Why don't you come and get me? Don't you have a weapon? Zhang Yi cursed in his heart. Stupid bitch, you really are shameless, and you expect me to come and get you? I want to do that, but I was a bit uncomfortable after they scared me the other day. Let's just leave it at that. I'm a bit sleepy. Bye. Fan Yuqing listened to the screams outside the doors and her face turned pale, but when she sent a message to Zhang Yi again, Zhang Yi had already stopped responding to her. Over the next few days, Zhang Yi's life remained rich and carefree. Now that he didn't have to go to work, he could sleep whenever he wanted and wake up whenever he wanted. There was no need to worry about making a living, and he didn't have to look at anyone's face. If anyone dares to upset him, he can just give them a piece of his mind. He is living the high life. Chen Zhenghao, who lives next door, is thinking of ways to get rid of him and take his house. But for several days running, Zhang Yi has not been seen. As long as Zhang Yi doesn't come out, he doesn't stand a chance against him. On the contrary, it is he who is on the edge of his seat, as Zhang Yi has put a price on his head. He couldn't even trust his own men, and slept with a gun in his hand. Soon, his nerves began to weaken. Chen Zhenghao racked his brain and finally figured out what he should do next. Zhang Yi kept a close eye on the entire building through surveillance cameras, and saw anyone who appeared in the hallway. In the past few days, he noticed that Chen Zhenghao seemed to be plotting something. One after the other, people began to enter Chen Zhenghao's home. These people are all young and strong, and they all live alone. Some came of their own free will, while others were forced here at gunpoint by Chen Zhenghao. Gradually, Chen Zhenghao's team grew to 10 people. Zhang Yi understood. He is afraid, so he tried to recruit a group of people to come over, so that he can avoid being killed himself and then come to me to collect the reward. However, in Zhang Yi's opinion, this approach is just like drinking poison to quench thirst. Zhang Yi has killed more than 40 residents in the building, and the remaining population is now down to about 70 people. As predicted in his previous life, the supplies in the vast majority of households have basically run out. So the next source of food is people. Chen Zhenghao gathered a group of followers and will soon begin the massacre of the others. However, this also means that Chen Zhenghao needs to provide food for 10 people. Even if they kill each other, they definitely wouldn't be able to last long. Besides, everyone is now harboring their own ulterior motives. Chen Zhenghao, the cripple, barely maintains his power with a gun. But I'm afraid he doesn't have many bullets left in that gun. Zhang Yi messaged Zhou Qir to ask her about the situation with Chen Zhenghao. It took a long time for Zhou Qir to reply to Zhang Yi. Chen Zhenghao and the others have gone crazy. They've now run out of food and have started eating people. I haven't eaten anything for 2 days and I feel like I'm going to die of hunger. This did not come as a surprise to Zhang Yi. If one day he was about to die of hunger and the only way to survive was to eat people, he would probably choose death over cannibalism. Of course, Zhang Yi was having this thought now that he was eating well every day. If the day ever came when he was also in a desperate situation with no food, he didn't know what he would do. Zhou Qir continued to say to Zhang Yi, these past few days, they have been going out every day looking for people. They just attack any house with people in it and kill them. Everyone is running out of supplies, which is ridiculous. The dozens of people you killed in the beginning actually allowed many people to live a little longer. But they were also met with some resistance. Those who are still alive have formed groups, and they have also suffered casualties. After a long time, Zhou Qir sent another message. Zhang Yi, can you still save me? Zhang Yi felt the humility of this cold and reserved female doctor when he read this message. She no longer seemed to have much hope for Zhang Yi. After all, in these times, everyone is in a desperate situation, so how can they afford to care about the lives of others? Zhang Yi pondered for a long time before finally making a decision. Zhou Qir, this woman could still be of use to him, and he couldn't let her just die. It wasn't easy to find a surgeon at a top-tier hospital, and one who knew her stuff at that. If you help me with one thing, I can let you live after it's done. Chapter 64, It's great to be the youngest. Zhang Yi can accept Zhou Qir, but she must submit a declaration of loyalty. Zhang Yi's demands are simple, they must be effective, non-threatening, and most importantly, they must not be naive. Zhang Yi is confident about the first 2 points. But he wants to know if Zhou Qir can be ruthless when the situation calls for it. So he gave Zhou Qir a task. Zhou Qir did not reply to Zhang Yi for the time being. It was obvious that she was also struggling. Zhang Yi was in no hurry. After all, time was on his side. If Zhou Qir could not pass this test, Zhang Yi would also decisively give up on her. After all, Zhang Yi was considered healthy, and the probability of him getting a sudden illness was very low. He would not go out casually, and the risk of injury was extremely low. However, it was hard to say how long Zhou Qir could still live. The next day, Zhang Yi slept until 10 o'clock in the morning. He lifted the velvet quilt, got up, and went to the bathroom to wash up. Then he changed into sportswear and started exercising on the treadmill. In the end times, good physical fitness is very important. Having a strong body allows you to better cope with danger when it strikes, and also prevents illness. He sweated profusely on the treadmill and ran for an hour before stopping. Then he took a hot shower. While bathing, Zhang Yi would feel a sense of pride. You have to understand that this kind of enjoyment is now an unaffordable luxury for so many people. Bang! 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 Just then, there was a sudden loud noise outside. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed as he quickly wrapped a towel around himself and walked out. He soon heard a stream of curses, coming from Zhou Peng. Zhang Yi turned on the surveillance camera and saw Zhou Peng outside the door, holding 2 kitchen knives and slashing wildly at his door. Zhang Yi, get the hell out of here. All you do is hide in this house all day. You're a coward and a useless piece of shit. Zhang Yi's mouth curled up. Oh yes, you're right. So what? This is really laughable. A useless piece of crap who can't even survive, and yet still harbors delusions of using provocation on Zhang Yi. It seems like you're the one who's in a hurry now, doesn't it? Zhang Yi noticed that when Zhou Peng smashed on the doors, he used his left hand to exert force, and it was difficult for him to raise his right hand. He knew that Zhou Peng's arm had become infected. Looking closely, he could even see his arm bulging upwards. Zhang Yi came to the front door, put his hands in his pockets, and said indifferently, Zhou Peng, being infected must not be pleasant, right? When I was in biology class, the teacher taught us about wound infections. The tetanus bacteria on the rust entered your wound and began to multiply like maggots on a corpse. Your arm wound must be at least 10 centimeters deep. It's cold outside, but your flesh is warm. The bacteria multiply like crazy in that warm environment and eat away at your flesh. Then the wound starts to fester, oozing black pus. The bacteria continues to multiply, and your wound grows bigger and bigger. Eventually, it travels along your blood vessels and spreads throughout your body. Zhang Yi described the process in vivid detail, and Zhou Peng felt his arm ache even more after listening. He was sweating coldly, as if he felt that his whole body was full of bacteria, ready to eat him alive. Even though he knew that Zhang Yi was deliberately trying to scare him, the fear inside him could not be suppressed. Ah! Zhang Yi, I'll kill you. Zhou Peng had gone mad. His arm was indeed rotten, and he knew he was going to die. So he wanted to give it one last try, but this time his approach was doomed to fail. In the next room, Chen Zhenghao's men heard Zhou Peng's mad screams and asked, should we finish him off? Chen Zhenghao thought for a moment and said, haven't you heard that he's dying from infection? How dare you eat pork that died of disease? They looked at each other and ultimately decided not to take the risk. Zhou Peng hacked at the doors for a while and cursed furiously. Finally, he grew tired and collapsed in front of Zhang Yi's house. He began to cry and beg Zhang Yi for mercy. Zhang Yi said softly, you're a dead man. Your wounds are festering. You're in the terminal stages. There's no saving you. It's better to take advantage of the fact that you're still alive and do the things you were afraid to do while you were alive. Zhou Peng's eyes were filled with tears. After hearing Zhang Yi's words, he fell into even deeper despair. Could it be that he was going to die? Fear enveloped him like an endless abyss. But then, anger, unbridled anger, came over him. If I'm going to die, what's there to be afraid of? He struggled to his feet and kicked the iron door of Zhang Yi's cell hard. He wanted to yell at him, but the door was so hard that the pain almost made him pass out. Zhou Peng didn't care about that. He stumbled back down the stairs. After returning to his place, his eyes were unfocused. He vaguely saw Sun Jichao burning a knife with a candle and then heating his own wounds. Sizzle. The sound of burning fat accompanied the rising smoke. Sun Jichao's pupils bulged, and even though he was biting the quilt, he still let out a painful wail. He seemed to think that this would kill all the bacteria. Ignorant and pitiful. Cousin. Wang Min looked at Zhou Peng with concern and didn't know how to comfort him. She knew that Zhou Peng wouldn't live long. Now the stench of decay could be smelled in the house every day. A person is still alive, but their body has already begun to rot. It is unimaginable how painful this is. Zhou Peng ignored Wang Min and rushed to the room where Fan Yuqing was being held. Fan Yuqing screamed in fear when she saw Zhou Peng. Zhou Peng? What are you doing? Shopeng walked up to Fan Yuqing and stared at her with bloodshot eyes. Yuqing, will you marry me? This poor lapdog, even though his life was about to come to an end, his greatest wish was to marry Fan Yuqing. In the end times, this request was so ridiculous, yet also quite humble. Fan Yuqing frowned, her eyes full of disgust. She subconsciously pinched her nose. No, I don't want to. Shopeng's heart broke. He had done so much for Fan Yuqing, even risking his own life. But Fan Yuqing had never once been remotely attracted to him. No. You love me, you love me. I want you, before I die, I want you to be my wife. Shopeng roared, and then began tearing Fan Yuqing's clothes. The people outside the house heard the sounds inside, but no one cared. In their eyes, Fan Yuqing was the culprit who had caused them to end up in their current situation, and she deserved to die. Fan Yuqing struggled desperately, but how could she compete with the strength of a crazy Shopeng? Shopeng tore open the down jacket she was wearing, and then impatiently stripped off his own clothes. No, go away, you stink, it's disgusting. Fan Yuqing yelled. How dare you call me smelly? Shopeng was furious. He suddenly ripped off the bandage on his arm. At this time, his wound was bulging high, already black and purple, and the wound was festering in a horrible way. He made a creepy gesture, actually grabbing the rotten wound with his hand, and then shoving the rotten flesh into Fan Yuqing's mouth. I let you scold me, I let you scold me. Fan Yuqing kept retching from disgust, but Shopeng still shoved a handful of rotten flesh into her mouth. Shopeng grinned evilly, watching the way his goddess was being humiliated by him. He suddenly felt an exhilarating pleasure he had never felt before. Chapter 65, Meat Broth. Shopeng tore off Fan Yuqing's clothes and wanted to have an in-depth exchange of bodily fluids, despite the temperature in the room being minus 60 degrees Celsius. Fan Yuqing was already too weak to resist, lying there with vacant eyes. But when Shopeng took off his pants, he realized a cruel truth: there was no way he could get it up. No kidding, not to mention the super low temperature of minus 60 to 70 degrees Celsius, his physical fitness was also at an all-time low. Even if he was given a chance, he would be useless. Get up, damn it, get up. Shopeng anxiously tried many methods, but none of them worked. It seemed that he had lost all feeling there. Fan Yuqing saw this and sneered, you really are useless. Ah! The room echoed with Shopeng's desperate roar, like a teddy bear that had been chewed up. After a night of deep thought, Shokir finally gave Zhang Yi a definite answer. She knew that this was Zhang Yi's test for her. Although it was very dangerous, if she didn't do it, it wouldn't be long before she would definitely die at the hands of Chen Zhenghao and the others. She had to take a chance. That night, Chen Zhenghao and the others sat in the living room, and then told one of their men to go to the kitchen and cook. Shokir was watching them from the corner, and suddenly stood up and said, I'll help him. Chen Zhenghao's eyes looked coldly at her, and his smile was a little creepy. Ha ha ha, I knew you couldn't resist. Shokir's body stiffened, and her blood was about to freeze. Chen Zhenghao continued, no one can stand not eating for 2 days. Don't be afraid, once you try it, you'll be addicted. The meat tastes so good, better than anything I've ever eaten before. Shokir felt slightly relieved and said, biting her lip, I don't want to die, I want to live. Chen Zhenghao thought Shokir had come to her senses and nodded, that's best. You're still somewhat useful to me. Originally, I was planning to use you as an ingredient if you really refused to eat the meat. Shokir took a deep breath and silently turned around to help in the kitchen. The kitchen was like hell, with blood splatters and unprocessed severed limbs and arms everywhere. Even with her nose blocked, Shokir could smell the overpowering stench. She forced herself to endure the discomfort and went over to help the young man cooking. The young man looked numb, didn't say anything, and just pointed to the axe and broken furniture next to him, asking her to chop some wood to start a fire. Shokir obediently did as she was told. Nowadays, with the lack of energy, the only way to cook was to burn furniture for fire. There was a makeshift stove in the kitchen with an iron pot on it. After the fire started, the snow inside slowly began to melt and turn into water. However, the melted snow water was not clear, but exceptionally muddy, with some impurities in it. However, it was good to have something to eat right now, and no one was going to complain. Joe kept staring at the young man while observing the movements outside the kitchen. Fine beads of sweat gradually appeared on the palms of her hands, because if the next move was discovered, she would be dead for sure. After a while, the young man finished cutting the meat and threw it into the pot, adding some seasoning at random. "Watch." The young man left the kitchen coldly, leaving behind these words. Joe waited for a long time, and only after confirming that it was safe did she reach into her pocket and take out a small bottle. Then, hastily unscrewing the cap, she poured a pile of white powder into the soup. After doing so, she quickly shoved the bottle back into her pocket. Only then did she feel her heart beating like a small engine, and her legs shaking from the tension. She swallowed hard, picked up a ladle and stirred the powder into the pot. The whole process was nerve-wracking, but nothing unexpected happened. This wasn't a movie, there were no twists and turns. Everyone had become numb due to the harsh living environment. They never would have guessed that Joe would put drugs in the broth. At noon, when it was time to eat, Joe brought a large pot of broth to the table. Their eyes immediately turned red with hunger, and they couldn't wait to start scooping up the meat. Joe also ladled herself a bowl of soup in order to gain their trust, and then quietly went back inside. No one paid any attention to her, either. Everyone just wanted to eat something hot. Hot food is equivalent to life. One more bite means one more hope of survival. After returning to her room, Joe sat on the bed with the broth in her hands. Then she began to wait silently. She had put sleeping pills in the pot, a good half of a bottle. These sleeping pills work quickly. One pill can make a person fall asleep in 30 minutes. Especially after a meal, when blood naturally gathers in the stomach, people tend to feel sleepy. With such a large amount, even if an elephant came in, it would have to fall asleep after eating it. As a doctor, Joe knew very well how this amount of sleeping pills would make them fall asleep. Unless they were stimulated by something particularly strong, they would not be able to wake up for a short period of time. So it wasn't long before Joe heard their snoring coming from the living room. Joe carefully went to the living room and saw everyone asleep on the sofa and chairs. Holding her breath, she sent a message to Zhang Yi. "I've given them a lot of sleeping pills, and they're all out cold. What are you going to do next?" Just a wall away was Zhang Yi's residence. He had been waiting for news from Joe to confirm whether she had completed her task. Only by proving her worth would she become a chess piece in Zhang Yi's hands. After seeing the message, Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow and told her, "Drag them onto the balcony." He would not go over there, in case it was a trap set by the other party. Joe bit her lip and finally said, "Okay." An ordinary person would definitely be scared to death, because if Chen Zhenghao and the others suddenly woke up at this time, they would definitely kill her. However, as a professional doctor, Joe was very confident in the effectiveness of the drugs. As Zhang Yi requested, she dragged Chen Zhenghao and the others outside one by one and left them on the balcony. Even though it was bitterly cold outside, they would not wake up for a short period of time, as was the case with people in a deep coma. On the contrary, because of the cold weather, their bodies would automatically choose to lower their body temperatures in order to prolong their lives in a dormant state. Zhang Yi stood in front of the window and watched everything Joe did clearly. Zhang Yi knew exactly how many people Chen Zhenghao had under his command. Nothing escaped his watchful eye through the surveillance cameras. When he saw Joe panting, dragging all those people out, he nodded in satisfaction. "What else do you need me to do next?" Joe asked, her voice trembling. "That's enough. Just wait for a moment." Zhang Yi put down his phone and turned around to go back to the bedroom. After some thought, he took out a thick winter suit from Dimensional Space and put it on. He also took out 10 pieces of hemp rope as thick as a child's arm and hung them around his waist. In his left hand, he held a well-strung crossbow bolt, and on his back, he carried a machete. Zhang Yi thought about it and felt that it was still not safe enough. He then took the pistol he had bought but never had the chance to use and turned the safety off, holding it in his hands. After all this, he felt a sense of security. Jean went to the French windows. For the first time since the end of the world, he reached out to unlock the French windows. The process was complicated. The lock had 3 layers of protection: fingerprint, electronic and physical. After unlocking the doors, Jean went to the balcony. The cold wind blew over, and through the winter clothes, it didn't feel particularly strong. Jean couldn't help but exclaim, "Professional-level cold-weather clothing is awesome." Jokir was huddled by the window, shivering as she watched him. Are you going to kill them?" Jean's mouth twisted as he raised the gun in his hand and aimed it at the thugs on the ground, and also at Jokir, vaguely. He threw the ropes down at Jokir's feet. "No, not me, but you."